Okay, just don't mention the hair. Hi everybody, welcome back and welcome to my wrap up for June. This is actually the 2nd of June. This is probably the earliest I have filmed a wrap up video since I have gone back to filming. I'm also going to be away off on a boat in a couple of weeks to do like a race and stuff like that, which is why I've decided to make the question solution to chop all my hair off in my bathroom by myself. I probably should have gotten a professional to do it. So don't make any comments about it and you and I shall remain friends. So yeah, I didn't actually read a whole load of books in June, sorry, or at least it doesn't feel like it, partly because I read 4 books that were in the same series, so that kind of feels like almost like the same thing. But I read 7 books in total, which is good, and yeah, I'll just talk about them. So the 4 books I read that were part of the series was the remainder of the Lockwood & Co. series, so that is The Whispering Skull, The Creeping Shadow, The Empty Grave, and The Hollow Boy, not in that order. I think Hollow Boy Hollow Boy comes in between Whispering Skull and Creeping Shadow. Now, I really loved the first book in this series. I loved the TV show adaptation, so I really wanted to see where this story went. Overall, really good series. I really liked the concept. I loved the characters. I loved the character dynamics. I thought the world building was really very interesting. You know, it is a really good series. I do think that it is let down ever so slightly by the fact that it is in the 9 to 12 age category rather than the teenage category. Without giving away too many spoilers, this is to do with whether or not characters die. Because there is also at one point where you really do think a character is dead, and it would have been very good for the story if they had stayed dead. But I understand for the 9 to 12 category, you maybe can't get away with that sort of kind of thing. So that kind of lost it a little bit for me. And similarly, I feel like there just wasn't quite enough of like darkness in this series, because this is a series about ghosts. This is about death and children having to deal with death and basically be, you know, they're basically having to fight ghosts. You know, they're the ones keeping the adults safe and stuff. And I really feel like that's really interesting theming that they just didn't quite go into enough of for my tastes. And I think it would have been absolutely fucking fascinating if they had. Like, if they had really gone into how fucked up this world is, that the children are the ones having to basically be the adults in all these scenarios. That would have been really very interesting. I understand why I didn't go down that route and kind of kept it on the kind of like keep it fun, keep it interesting for the kids and stuff. I think if they had just upped it to that teen category, I feel like this series would have been absolutely incredible. I mean, it was still brilliant, absolutely loved it. I mean, I loved our main trio of George, Lockwood, and Lucy. I really liked how their friendships and dynamics changed over the course of the books. I liked the introduction of the character of Holly. I don't think it was handled insanely well. There are points in this series that I'm like, this was very clearly written by a man. But I did like where her and Lucy's relationship went eventually, but I just didn't like the way it started, and the way it was almost like just that pitting girls against each other kind of thing. There's one thing I liked the TV show did was that they, you know, gave Lucy more female friends in that kind of regard. But overall, it was really good. I really liked how each book had its own set of ghost hauntings that we dealt with. It had its sort of main haunting that kind of made up the book. I liked the way that, yeah, like I said, I liked the way the character dynamics changed. I liked the way the friendships changed. I liked the pacing. I thought the overall plot and plot twists and stuff were really fucking good. But again, like I said, really interesting concepts that you then feel just kind of get all tied up. Like I still have so many questions after reading the last book. Like, yeah, just it was really good. Really great characters. Really great plot. Fantastic storyline. Just amazing. But just missing that level of depth that would have turned it from good to amazing. Like, yeah. But overall, I mean, really good. Very easy to read. Would highly recommend this for anyone, even if you don't tend to read middle grade. I would really recommend you read this. Yeah, I really liked it, and I think it's still such a shame that the TV show got cancelled, because it would have been brilliant to see how they adapted the later books and the later characters and the later plot dynamics and stuff. That would have been, especially since the show does kind of go for a more young adult kind of route with the tone and the characterization and stuff. Like, they do go a bit darker, and I think that's exactly what the series needed. And so I'm gonna forever just be mad that Netflix never continued telling that kind of story with these book series. Then read Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. This is a proof that I got. It's not actually out yet. I think it comes out 17th of July it comes out. So this is Holly Jackson's first non-YA book. She's writing just in the general adult crimes scenario. section, and this follows our main character Jet, who basically is assaulted in her home, wakes up in the hospital to find out that while she survived the initial attack, because of the damage to her skull, there's a slither of skull that is sort of like floating around in her head, basically. It's getting closer and closer to artery, and it's going to cause an aneurysm. There's no surgery to help it, so basically she is going to be dead in 7 days. Her aneurysm is going to rupture and she's going to die, and there's nothing they can do for her. So she decides in her last sort of week of living, she's going to find out who her murderer is. Very, very interesting premise, and it's such a tragic book. I mean, because you know what's coming, and Jet knows what's coming, and it is just so almost upsetting just to sort of see her try and distract herself from the fact that she knows when she's going to die. Like, that's a horrifying thought, because I feel like, you know, humans as a whole, we're terrified of death, we're really scared of dying. So, you know, so what would you do and how would you behave if you knew that you only had a few days left to live and there was nothing that could be done? And yeah, so her grief and her rage and stuff is really felt in this book. But as well, like, just the fact that she, you know, learns how to kind of like live again and things like that, and the relationship she has with Billy in this book, who's sort of her childhood friend, who ends up kind of being her like sort of sidekick on this investigating her own murder kind of scenario. You know, I really, really enjoyed seeing that develop. And again, just with that overarching tension of we only have 7 days left to be friends. You know, how does that affect things? How does that affect how we treat each other and stuff? Like, it was a very, very good book. I would say there's like this one bit that it does towards the end where it's like she's trying to be like, ooh, you think it might be this person, and then like immediately does a 180 to be like, oh no, it wasn't them. Like, I kind of wish that had been cut, because the overall thing of who it was and why they did what they did and stuff, like, you know, is done very, very well, and I liked how it's concluded. But there's just this one bit where you can just kind of tell that she's just trying to pull the rug out from under your feet. And it would work if she'd committed to it, if that had been the plot twist, you know, fucking commit to it. Or, yeah, or just cut it out. Like, because having her think that for literally like a split second, and then something else happens, and then she's like, oh wait, no, never mind, it was never going to be you. Like, it just kind of cheapens the whole effect, which is something I find sometimes with crime especially. Like, they do often just try to be like, haha, gotcha, over telling just a good story. I mean, I get it, it's a very competitive genre. Like, we see so many new crime books all the time, and it is dominated by certain authors, especially up in Scotland, with sort of tartan noir kind of being a really big thing up here. So like, I do get that there's like almost that pressure to write a crime book or a thriller that is tense, that you can't tell what's going to happen, but at the same time it's like, okay, but like, if you're doing that at the expense of good characterization and just telling a good story, it's not going to do well, because it's just, you're just trying to get a shock, you're just trying to get a reaction rather than actually trying to tell a good story. So like, that doesn't happen in this book. Like, don't get me wrong, I do, like I said, I do like the whole story. There's just like this one scene that I'm like, I wish you hadn't had that in there, otherwise this would have been a 5-star read for me. 4 stars though, really great. Really interesting to see her depart from the YA genre, but still have those sort of key Holly Jackson sort of just ideas. Like, she really is just cemented as just a really good writer of a thriller, and can't wait to see what she comes out with next. But yeah, definitely pick this up when it comes out later this month. I then read Malice by John Gwynne. This is my first John Gwynne. I've been meaning to read him basically since I first joined BookTube. It's taken me far too long. I actually met him when I went to Chimera a couple of months ago. So my book is actually signed, which is so nice. He's lovely as well, and it was a really, really interesting talk that we heard, because it was him and Tasha Suri discussing sort of like coming to an end of a series and how like they approach that, how they write that and stuff. It was really quite interesting. So I read Malice. I am going to read The Faithful and the Fallen before I get to the Bloodsworn trilogy, because I've heard that's just like a good way to do it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, I think this is for you. Like, it with the whole multiple characters, and it's like, I mean, being first book in a series, it is going somewhere, and it's very interesting seeing everything get laid out. You know, you get the premise, you get the idea and stuff, you get introduced to sort of your key characters and stuff. And whilst big stuff does happen in this book, it is very like small scale, I would imagine, to what I think is probably going to be coming later on. And I have a feeling what's coming later on is going to be direct repercussions to some events that happen in this book. I was so sad when certain characters didn't make it. Like, oh, book 1 in a series, we're already losing some of my favorites and stuff. That was mean. That was just mean. yeah, but I really liked this. I think it's the 3.5 to 4 stars for me, partly just because like it's not that nothing happens, it's just that lots of little things happen rather than one big thing. And like I said, it is a lot of just establishing the world, establishing the characters, and establishing the setup. So I'm very, very excited to see where all these characters go. Um, but like if just considering this book on its own, it does kind of just lose me a little bit at times and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I really, really liked the younger characters. I like the diversity of the characters. Like we've got young 13, 14 year olds. You've also got much older characters in their 30s and 40s and things like that. And we're seeing from lots of different perspectives on both sides of the conflict. Well, not really both sides, because there's multiple sides to this conflict, and that's one thing that John Gwynne actually spoke about in his talk, was about, inserting characters so you can be like, oh, what's actually going on over there and what's going on over here? Well, let's go see. So let's have this character that's within that, and how do they change as the book goes on? Yeah, I just and the writing itself was just brilliant, like really well written. I think this was a debut as well, so like the dialogue and the description and stuff was fantastic. I thought the fight scenes were really well done as well. I liked the new takes on like dragons and giants and stuff in this book. Like, yeah, just good. Really, really good. Then finally, I read The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst. This is the sort of like sequel / companion novel to The Spell Shop, and this comes out later this month. I think it's also on the 17th of July. And this is just cute, cozy fantasy. I absolutely adored The Spell Shop, so when I saw I could get a hold of a proof of The Enchanted Greenhouse, I was just like, yes, for me. So the spell shop, it kind of follows this librarian who, alongside her sentient talking spider plant Kaz, who's her librarian assistant. When the revolution happens, they steal a few magical books from the library, hightail it out of there, and basically try to sort of like get their lives together now that they know that the library's gone, but they've now got what are now basically illegal magic books and stuff. And you can, and then the rest of them at the spell shop is kind of just about, romance and just cute and just sort of, her trying to find a way to use the magical knowledge she has to help her community and stuff, whilst kind of like keeping it on the down low, since even though the revolution's happened, it's still kind of illegal. And the Enchanted Greenhouse, though, follows the librarian who created Kaz the talking spider plant in the first place, because she's mentioned in the first book. It's mentioned how she was turned into a statue as punishment for her crimes. And it's really sweet when you read the author's note at the end of this, where she was like, oh, I feel like, it was such a shame that Turlu didn't get her own happy ending. So this is her happy ending. So this follows Turlu when she wakes up, having been destatuified. She wakes up on a island that she's never heard of, where there is this massive, beautiful, magical greenhouse. And there's just this one gardener who is trying to look after it, and it's revealed that the greenhouse is failing, sort of one house by a time. He sent to the sort of Central Republic to ask for help, and in return he got sent her with the instructions on how to unfreeze her, and she doesn't know why, because she's no sorcerer. She's a librarian who did one spell and got very violently punished for it, and everything kind of goes from there. Yeah, just such a great return to this world. It's so cute and cozy. If the spell shop is like a summer magical romance, this is definitely a winter magical romance, and it's so cute and cozy and wholesome, and I adored Turlu as a character. I loved the romance. I just loved all the side characters. There's more sentient talking plants in this one, and they are so much fun. I adore them. I just nothing but good things about these books. They're like a big warm hug, but with just such great, and the writing as well is fantastic. I mean, when you look at Sarah Beth Durst's, bibliography or whatever you want to call it, she's written a lot of books, and that comes through in the writing because it's just so well written, from the descriptions to the dialogue to the characterization to just the way she introduces things and has similes or metaphors and things, the actual craft of her writing. You just kind of see it and appreciate it in this book, because even though this book is like a easy cozy romance and stuff, it is still so expertly written. And yeah, she's just flexing how good she is of a writer, and I have nothing but good things to say about this book. I absolutely adored it. So that's a little bit of a shorter video for me today, but that is actually all the books I read in June. I forgot what month it was. But yeah, I'll actually hopefully try and get some more non-wrap-up videos out this month, since I am getting a bit early with getting my filming done. And yeah, but like I said, I'm going to be away on a boat for a week, so might be trying to read a lot of pirate themed books that I have sitting about because I feel like that's really on theme. Have you read any of the books that I have mentioned this month, or are you looking forward to the two that aren't out yet that I have already read? Please do let me know down in the comments. And what did you read in the month of June? That would be great to hear from you. But anyway, thank you so much. Don't mention my hair. We'll see you next time.